Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
Good morning, I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Karen Moscow. Here are the stories we're following today.
Karen, we begin with a developing story overnight. New York City Mayor Eric Adams has been indicted following a federal corruption investigation. We get the very latest with Bloomberg's John Tucker. Good morning, John.
Nathan, weeks of searches, subpoenas, and resignations of top officials have pushed New York City's government into crisis. And now a bitter Mayor Eric Adams released a video statement last night.
I always knew that if I stood my ground for all of you, that I would be a target. And a target I became. For months, leaks and rumors have been aimed at me in an attempt to undermine my credibility and paint me as guilty.
The indictment so far is sealed. We don't yet know what the federal criminal charges are or when the mayor is likely to appear in court. The mayor and some of his senior administration officials have been the subject of at least 4 different federal investigations that we know about, 2 of which we learned about just this month. This could be related to any one. A probe that became public in November of last year appeared to be centering on potential campaign finance violations. Authorities have been looking at the conduct of people close to him, including the now former police commissioner Edward Caban, who stepped down just a couple of weeks after his phone was seized by federal agents, that in connection with a potential scheme involving his twin brother. Adams is vowing to remain in office despite calls for his immediate resignation from fellow Democrats. In New York, I'm John Tucker, Bloomberg Radio.
All right, John, thank you. Well, the indictment of Adams, just the second black mayor in the city's more than 400-year history, is a remarkable turn for a former police captain who beat a crowded field to win the New York City mayor's race in 2021, running on a law and order platform that pledged to make city government work better. Bloomberg's Laura Nemias has been looking into the probes.
The earliest investigation that we became aware of was a probe that sort of burst into public view in November of last year that appeared to be centering on potential campaign finance violations in the mayor's 2021 campaign, the campaign that got him elected mayor, and whether or not there was some interaction with the government of Turkey, potential straw donor scheme, but 2 other investigations seem to be underway. It's not clear if those actually are looking at the mayor's conduct specifically, but they do seem to be looking at the conduct of people who are incredibly close to him.
Bloomberg's Laura Nemias adds that Adams could be removed from office by Governor Kathy Hochul upon formal charges with a chance to defend himself and can be suspended for up to 30 days during the process.
Karen, we've also had fast-moving developments in the Middle East. Israel continues to go after Hezbollah targets in Lebanon, even as the U.S. and allies propose a 3-week ceasefire. President Biden and French President Emmanuel Macron presented the proposal to allow for negotiations so people in northern Israel and southern Lebanon can return to their homes. Israel's UN ambassador Danny Danon says that's what he'd like to see.
It will happen either after a war or before a war. We hope it will be before.
But Bloomberg's Paul Wallace reports it's not clear whether Hezbollah will accept the offer.
One thing that I think is quite clear is that something will have to be given to Hezbollah, some kind of political concession to allow it to save face, because it's quite difficult to see Hezbollah agreeing to move back its forces from the Israeli border and to stop firing on Israel unless it gets something in return.
Bloomberg's Paul Wallace in Dubai. This week's airstrikes have left more than 600 dead, including at least 50 children. Hezbollah has responded with hundreds of rocket attacks, including one aimed for the first time at Tel Aviv.
Well, Nathan, the U.S. has announced a new weapons package for Ukraine worth $375 million. The assistance coincides with a visit by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to the U.S. this week. Meantime, former President Donald Trump lashed out at the Biden administration and Zelensky for refusing to make a deal with Russia.
A deal could have been made if we had a competent president instead of a president that egged it all on. And Biden and Kamala allowed this to happen by feeding Zelensky money and munitions like no country has ever seen before. Every time he came to our country, he'd walk away with $60 billion. He's probably the greatest salesman on earth.
In another development, Trump is planning to return to the site of the first assassination attempt on his life. Trump will hold a rally at the fairgrounds in Butler, Pennsylvania on October 5th, exactly 1 month before Election Day.
Karen, Vice President Kamala Harris was in Pennsylvania yesterday, laying out her vision for what she calls an opportunity economy. In a speech to the Economic Club of Pittsburgh, the Democratic presidential nominee promised to be an ally to both corporate executives and the people who work for them.
Look, I'm a capitalist. I believe in free and fair markets. I believe in consistent and transparent rules of the road to create a stable business environment.
Vice President Harris's campaign also released an 82-page policy blueprint after her speech. She also gave her first solo interview as a candidate to MSNBC, saying she'll visit the U.S.-Mexico border tomorrow and making another pitch for the bipartisan immigration bill that stalled in Congress this year.
My pledge is that when elected president, if the American people will have me, I will bring that bill back and I will sign it into law.
Kamala Harris also defended her opposition to Nippon Steel's takeover of U.S. Steel. She says keeping steel production American-owned is more important than the potential job losses if the deal falls through.
Well, Nathan, the latest campaigning comes as Congress averts a government shutdown. It passed a short-term federal funding bill. We get more with Bloomberg's Ed Baxter.
In the House, Speaker Mike Johnson relied on Democratic votes to move it through an expedited process that limited floor debate but required a two-thirds vote.
This is not the House's fault. It's the Senate's fault. They passed not a single appropriations bill, so there was nothing for the two chambers to negotiate in the end, and there was no agreement on the top-line spending numbers.
So as you hear, the animosity between House and Senate will continue, and they'll go at it again in December. The White House has issued a statement thanking the bodies and saying it will work with them. Ed Baxter, Bloomberg Radio.
Thanks, Ed. Turning to markets, futures are higher on Wall Street, fueling the gains. Micron Technology, those shares are up nearly 16%. The largest U.S. maker of computer memory chips gave a surprisingly strong revenue prediction for the current period, helped by demand for artificial intelligence gear.
Well, Nathan, we're also seeing big gains for stocks in Asia overnight. Stocks in China and Hong Kong rose more than 4%. China's top leaders ramped up urgent efforts to revive growth with pledges to support fiscal spending and stabilize the beleaguered property sector.
And Karen, this is a Bloomberg exclusive. OpenAI is talking about giving CEO Sam Altman a 7% equity stake in the company and restructuring to become a for-profit business. This would mark the first time Sam Altman's granted ownership in the AI startup. Sources say OpenAI is mulling these changes against the backdrop of an exodus of senior managers.
And it's time now for a look at some of the other stories making news in New York and around the world. And for that, we're joined by Bloomberg's Michael Barr. Michael, good morning.
Good morning, Karen. Hurricane Helene continues to strengthen as it heads toward the Big Bend area of Florida's Gulf Coast. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis says on top of the winds, forecasters say the storm surge threatens to be unsurvivable.
Remember, you hide from wind, but you run from the water.
Bloomberg meteorologist Rob Carolyn has more.
Hurricane Helene located about 300 miles to the southwest of Tampa, moving off towards the north at 11 miles an hour. It will continue to strengthen today. It is forecast to hit the Florida Big Bend area tonight as a Category 4 hurricane. Winds could be in excess of 120 miles an hour with a storm surge in excess of 20 feet. The system will produce rain and wind across the Florida Peninsula and Florida Panhandle today. Some of that rain will be spreading northward across the southeastern United States today. Looks like since the system is going to be moving quickly this evening, it's going to bring rain and significant wind to portions of the southeastern United States tonight and into tomorrow, and we could have inland flooding as far north as the southern Appalachians and Tennessee River Valley. I'm Rob Carolyn, Bloomberg Radio.
Thank you, Rob. A panel of appellate judges in New York will hear former President Donald Trump's appeal of his civil fraud case ruling. The judge overseeing the case ordered Trump and his company to pay more than $460 million in fines. The court will have to decide whether to uphold the verdict or reduce the almost $500 million penalty. After Israel launched a new campaign against Hezbollah, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu postponed his trip to New York to speak before the UN General Assembly. Netanyahu was supposed to speak today, but will speak on Friday. Before then, delegates are expected to hear from Lebanon's foreign minister. Global news 24 hours a day and whenever you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Michael Barr, and this is Bloomberg, Karen.
All right, Michael Barr, thank you. Time Time now for the Bloomberg Sports Update with John Stashower. John, good morning.
Good morning, Karen. The champagne remains corked in the Yankee clubhouse. Baltimore won for a second straight night to remain mathematically alive in the AL East. Orioles led 8-1 in the fifth inning when Juan Soto hit a two-run homer, his 41st. They led 9-3 in the ninth. Aaron Judge, a three-run shot, his 57th. But the Orioles hung on 9-7. Another chance for the Yanks tonight. Nestor Cortez was to start last night. He's been pitching great of late, but he has an elbow strain, and Cortez won't pitch again until perhaps the Yanks get to the ALCS. Detroit and Kansas City both won. Looks like they'll be the last two AL wildcards. The Mets rained out in Atlanta last night and hurricaned out tonight, so they'll play this weekend in Milwaukee, and then assuming the games have meaning, they'll finish the regular season with a doubleheader Monday afternoon back in Atlanta, and the Mets may then have to get out to San Diego for a playoff game on Tuesday. Arizona won last night. Diamondbacks back tied with the Mets. They both lead the Braves by a game. Two of the three teams will make the postseason. Second week in a row, a Thursday nighter at MetLife. It's the Giants and Cowboys. Both are 1-2 with the Giants coming off their first win. Dallas just lost two straight at home. Caitlin Clark's WNBA rookie season is over. She scored 25 points in Indiana's playoff loss at Connecticut. John Stashower, Bloomberg Sports. Ken and Nathan.
Coast to coast on Bloomberg Radio, nationwide on Sirius XM, and around the world on Bloomberg.com and the Bloomberg Business app. This is Bloomberg Daybreak.
Good morning, I'm Nathan Hager. New York City Mayor Eric Adams is in a fight for political survival as he faces a sealed indictment following a months-long federal corruption probe. But the mayor is promising he will fight.
Enough. I will fight these injustices with every ounce of my strength and my spirit. If I'm charged, I know I am innocent. I will request an immediate trials so the New Yorkers can hear the truth.
Mayor Adams in a video message he posted last night. This morning, we're joined by Bloomberg News managing editor Derek Wallbank for the latest. Derek, good morning. So what do we know about these charges against the mayor?
Well, Nathan, we don't actually know exactly what he's being charged with. There is at least one charge, could be multiple charges that are under seal that could be released as early as today, according to people who asked not to be identified. But we are aware of a couple of things that Adams has been linked with. Let's say, right. Now, it should also be said, and I should make this very, very clear, Adams has said he's done nothing wrong. He said that he plans to fight, and he has said that he plans to remain in power. So let's put all of that onto the table. But there are some things that he has been dealing with. One investigation that we're aware of was talking about whether the Adams campaign had coordinated with the Turkish government to take illegal donations and questions about permitting and some other things like that. And another one was dealing with a search of a home owned by a prominent Adams fundraiser. So you've got a couple of things that have been going on, right, that are involving the mayor. Again, we don't know what this exactly is going to be about. We should hopefully get some more information, maybe as the day goes on, maybe as the weeks go on, we should get some more information because this report is going to have to get answered somehow.
But to your point about how the investigation has really been swirling around Adams for some time, we've seen a lot of people in his inner circle really start to go down over this, including the now former police commissioner and some others.
Yeah, and and the thing that I keep thinking about was we're looking at this, Nathan, it's impossible to think of it without thinking of the time and the moment that we're in, right? We're just a couple of weeks before the U.S. election. Eric Adams is one of the most prominent Democrats that there happens to be, and we're going to have to hear from really prominent Democrats about what they think. Now, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has already said that she thinks that Adams should step down. We're going to be waiting to hear from Hakeem Jeffries, from Chuck Schumer. The top two Democrats in Congress are both New Yorkers. We'll need to hear from Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, who has some some power maybe in her back pocket to be able to take some action against the mayor under state rules. And then, there will be a fair number of Republicans who will want to note that Eric Adams and Kamala Harris know each other. And in the specter of a presidential race, any sort of difficulties here may become a liability for Harris in much the same way that Mark Robinson's difficulties in North Carolina have become a difficulty for Donald Trump. So you cannot take this, even if it has nothing to do with presidential electoral politics, you cannot take the situation out of the moment in time in which it is currently happening.
Now, as you say, we are waiting for some of those more prominent officials to respond. But if he does start to lose support at the highest levels, I mean, how much longer can Adams hold on as he awaits these charges?
Well, that is going to be a question that really only he can answer. New York is a place where political pressure can come thick and fast, right? It is one of the biggest political pressure points anywhere in the U.S., but it's also a place where, he can, if he gets enough backing, maybe try and ride this out. Now, as I say, he has been very clear he is going to fight whatever this happens to be, and he wants to remain in power. So that is a thing that you would have to say if you were going to try and do that. But part of the answer to that question will deal with what we were talking about just before. What happens with all of these other very prominent New Yorkers and Democrats, and what do they say, and how much pressure is put on him externally?
This is Bloomberg Daybreak, your morning podcast on the stories making news from Wall Street to Washington and beyond.
Look for us on your podcast feed by 6 a.m. Eastern each morning on Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else you listen.
You can also listen live each morning starting at 5 a.m. Wall Street time on Bloomberg 1130 in New York, Bloomberg 99.1 in Washington, Bloomberg 92.9 in Boston, and nationwide on Sirius XM Channel 121.
Plus, listen coast to coast on the Bloomberg Business app, now with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto interfaces.
And don't forget to subscribe to Bloomberg News Now. It's the latest news whenever you want it, in 5 minutes or less. Search Bloomberg News Now on your favorite podcast platform to stay informed all day long. I'm Karen Moscow.
And I'm Nathan Hager. Join us again tomorrow morning for all the news you need to start your day right here on Bloomberg Daybreak.